Hey everybody, it's me, Tracy Thomas, host of The Stacks, and I am here with another episode of The Stacks Unabridged. That is our exclusive bonus podcast episode that we drop every single month for paid subscribers on the Patreon and the Substack. This month, I am talking to one of my absolute favorite readers. Her name is Martha Adams, and she is the reader behind Martha Monthly, which is a Substack that focuses on translated literature. This month is Women in Translation Month, so I thought it was a perfect time to bring Martha on the show to talk about why she reads translated literature, how she finds the books, how you can find the books, and of course, give us some recommendations of her favorite books in translation. If you're listening to this episode and it cuts out about 10, 15 minutes in, that means you're not a paid subscriber on Patreon or Substack. And you should be, especially if you want to listen to the rest of the conversation. And to do that, you can go to patreon.com/thestacks to join the Stacks Pack and get access to things like our virtual book club, our mega reading challenge, and our extremely active Discord. And you can subscribe to my newsletter Unstacked by going to tracythomas.substack.com. Over there, you're going to get my hot takes on pop culture, on books, my nonfiction files where I talk all about nonfiction books. And in both of those places, by joining, you support me and make it possible for me to make this podcast every single week. All right, now it is time for my conversation with Martha Adams about all things translated literature. All right, everybody, I am so excited for today's bonus episode. We're doing something that I am, quite frankly, not an expert in. So I brought in an expert. It's not September. It's actually August. August is Women in Translation Month. Women Literature and Translation. I don't know. It's about women's books that aren't written in English first. And I have brought in my absolute go-to person, my favorite person to talk about translated lit on the internet. That is Martha Adams. She has a Substack called Martha Monthly. Martha, welcome to the Stacks.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I'm so excited. I love your stuff. Every time anyone asks about books and translation, I always am like, well, I definitely don't know. But do you know about Martha on Substack? And I have sent so many people your way because you've got great taste. So I want to start with just like, how did you get... So you're in the UK.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Where are you exactly?
Like an hour outside of London. I live in Surrey.
How did you get into reading translated literature? When did this start for you?
It started when I got really, really sick. I got diagnosed with a chronic illness about 5 years ago, and I was bedbound for 3 of those years. And you can't do anything when you're stuck in bed. And I'd always been a reader, so I kept reading. And I think it was because I was stuck in bed, it was the only thing I could do. So then you end up, researching a bit more. What are the best books? Like, it was all I had for entertainment. I think the first translated book I read was by Murakami, who can't say I'm a fan of now, but he's, I think, a lot of people's like first touchstone of translation.
Yeah.
And I remember being really obsessed with like how the book had allowed me to travel so far away from my like situation. I know every book can do that, but there's something different about books in translation, I think, is their ability to like transport you to other places. And I got kind of hooked from there. And then I started reading and following Charco Press, and then got really into translated literature, and it sort of became a cult following from me from there. And I've like accidentally carved out a space online where people think I'm the expert of translated literature, which is not the case, but I just do read a lot of it.
You're not an expert, but you're just like reading the most of it. So I feel like you have, at least in the people that I know. So for me, it's like, if I'm curious about a book, like it's on my radar, like Martha's probably read it. So I can at least go see, like what you think. And you and I have really different taste, but it's more just like a person who can sort of like vouch for something.
We share a love of being completely honest about what we think about books. And that's where we overlap.
Yes, you and I. Yeah, that's where we overlap. I know. I feel like we both loved Hunchback.
Yes. Mm-hmm. I interviewed the author as well, which was really interesting.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
How does that work?
I wrote questions.
Does the translator with her?
Yeah. No, I wrote questions and then the translator translated them into Japanese. Sal could answer them and then they got translated back into English and then sent back to us.
Wait, I think I read that.
Yeah, probably. It was on Pandora Sykes' newsletter. It was in
yeah,
beginning of 2025. Yeah.
I think I did read that. I loved that book. Did you read Sad Tiger? Do you ever read nonfiction in translation?
I do read nonfiction in translation sometimes, but it's just a little bit harder to get your hands on for reasons that I don't quite understand. But I did love Sad Tiger. It was one of my favorite books last year.
So it's one of mine too. And so was Hunchback. Those both, I think, made my top 10 last year. If Sad Tiger didn't make my top 10, it was like 12. Do you know what I mean? Like it was right there. I can't even remember. I think it made my top 10 of 2025. Yeah. But I don't know if it made my top 10 of all the things I read in the year. That I can't remember. But those were two of my absolute favorite books last year.
Why did you love them so much?
Well, I love like a very messy protagonist. So for Hunchback, I just like the moral quandaries in that book, I just really loved. I know for a lot of people, it's like the disability representation, not so interesting to me. I was really interested in the like sex for money, and like the power and like all of that stuff. I was like, this is really dark. And it was weird and so not weird in a way that felt like
familiar.
It didn't feel like weird for weird's sake. It felt correct. Like that person who is sort of like, her mind is going a million miles a minute, but her body is not. To like have all of these thoughts and like ideas that were just all over the place. I was like, this feels like a grounded weirdness, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think I liked all of that. And then Sad Tiger is just, that's like my bread and butter, like a really dark memoir about something absolutely awful happening, but really like well written and sort of thinking about like not just the things that happen, but like why we tell these stories and how we tell these stories. So like, I don't know if you read the Yi and Lee last year, Things in Nature Merely Grow. They're very similar.
Okay.
And that one was about, similar in like, they're similar in how they sort of approach writing about difficult topics, but the Yi and Lee is about her son who killed himself like 6 years after her older son killed himself. And it's like obviously about grief, but it was also about sort of like the performance of grief and like deciding to write about this and how have other people like told the story of grief. And so I sort of felt like those books were similar.
Yeah. They are
Anyways,
similar.
this isn't about me. Why did you like them?
I liked Hunchback for the disability exploration. I liked the fact that she was a disabled protagonist who was like a bit morally corrupt. I think a lot of times disabled protagonists have to be like completely morally pure and people write them that way. So I liked that and just how outrageous it was. Like every time you turn the page and she'd written something more outlandish than before. And you're just like, this book's only 100 pages. Like where are we going? Like, where's it going to end?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So I just liked how much it just made me gasp. And then Sad Tiger, I just thought it was so beautiful and sad. I loved how she wrote about it. I loved how she wrote about everything that happened to her, like in context of the world we live in and society and like how people treated her for her experience. I just thought it was unbelievable. It really makes you think about like the world that we live in and how people handle certain information and like how they interpret it and what it makes people think about people. That's like a really bad explanation, but I think you understand what I mean because you're nodding. Yeah,
I do. I also feel like that was one of those books that was like, oh, everyone could be brave. Like anyone can do like a brave thing, right? Because like she like does this brave thing of allowing this trial to be public or whatever, or like taking it to trial.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure. Did you read, this is like a much more front listy, it's in translation, but it doesn't feel as like niche, but the Giselle Pellico book?
I didn't. But it was
same translator as Sad Tiger. Yeah.
And
so that was part of the reason I decided to read it.
She translated a book before Sad Tiger that was again about sexual assault to some degree.
Called Consent.
Yeah.
I think.
So that translates.
I haven't read that one.
No, me neither. But I think it's fascinating. She's translated 3 books in such similar subject and tone.
Do you have any idea how people find their translator? Like, is it like, oh, I have a book about like sexual assault, I gotta go find...
Well, maybe for that case,
woman who does it.
She wanted Natasha Leher because she'd handled the topic so many times. So maybe Giselle Piccolo or like her publishers trusted her.
Yeah.
But I think in other times it's like a variety of different things. Like a lot of translators submit samples of translations to publishing houses. And I think like that is a way they get picked up. But a lot of publishing houses also have translators they just really love and they keep coming back to. So I think a lot of it is like built on, especially for independent presses, it's like built on relationships.
Right.
I interviewed Richard Village literally last week, who's the founder of Foundry Editions. And he himself speaks 4 languages. So he doesn't need the submissions. He like from translators, he can just read it himself and then pick. But they always talk about the fact that they want to build like a family of translators. So I think you often see with independent presses, like the same translator will come up multiple times in them because they obviously build trust. So, but that's the extent of my knowledge.
I have to imagine also like it really depends on the language.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of people who can do like Spanish or French, but then if you start getting into other languages, it probably gets harder.
Yeah, I think it is the case. And I think it also just depends on what kind of writer you are. Like, not to reference this interview again that's not out yet, but Richard, he said that, I translate some stuff for the house, but other times, like, I know when to step back. And I said to him, like, what does that mean? Like, when you read a book in Spanish and you know you can translate it, like, why do you choose not to? And he was like, because some people's translation style and their writing is just way better. Like, they're a better writer. It's not about the fact that you can just read and, like, relay the exact text. It's about, like, becoming a writer, like, putting the emotion in it, carrying the story. And that's a different skill entirely, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you read the book that I was obsessed with this year, If This Be Magic, about translating Shakespeare? All right, that's it. If you want more of this episode of The Stacks Unabridged, you must join The Stacks Pack on Patreon by going to patreon.com/thestacks or subscribe to my newsletter Unstack at tracythomas.substack.com. And remember, by joining either of those places, you make it possible for me to make The Stacks every single week free to all. Thank you so much for your support, and we will see you in The Stacks.